So 3 more mitzvahs on Purim Day. Don't forget them. First of all, giving charity to at least 2 poor people. If you're blessed that you don't even know poor people, our email indicates a way you can give charity online through the Young Israel of Las Vegas. They have an arrangement with Od Yosef Chai, a charity in Israel, that will dispense charity on Purim Day to 2 needy Jews in Israel. Your money will go there. According to the halakha, you're supposed to give at least as much money as it would cost a poor person to buy a nice meal. Does not mean the most expensive thing at a restaurant menu, but a nice meal. So it's estimated by the rabbis of nowadays in the United States that a gift of 20 to 25 bucks is appropriate. For 2 gifts, that would be 40 to 50 bucks. So you would make a $40 to $50 donation, either to 2 poor people you know, or 40 to 50 bucks to an institution to be given to poor people, Jewish people, on Purim Day. In the absence of any other idea on your part, and similar to what I'll be doing, I'll be giving that money to the special program of Young Israel of Las Vegas. Last year, we chose to do it through Young Israel of Century City. Most years, we do it through Young Israel of Orange County. And this year, we're doing it through Young Israel of Las Vegas. We have 130 shuls around the world, part of our Young Israel network. Since we're doing it for both husband and wife, each has a mitzvah. So I'll give 40 to 50 bucks. And Denise, my wonderful, beautiful, lovely, kind, and sweet wife, will get 40 to 50 bucks. And so that's the second mitzvah. Hearing Megillah, giving tzedakah. The third is shalach manos in Yiddish, or mishloach manot ish l're'ehu. Giving a manot is plural, so it means a plurality of food, at least 2 food items, to at least 1 person. Many shuls make, and it's thoroughly good, legitimate idea, many shuls make a project to make money out of that, where they charge you for the service and they take a little bit extra. And that's a beautiful way to donate to a shul and do a mitzvah. Our shul does not run such a project. So what we do instead is that we send in that same big email that started going out links to Yashar L'Chayal. Yashar L'Chayal is an agency run by a guy who went to the yeshiva high school where I taught in Jersey City. He went to Rogerson Yeshiva High School, made Aliyah, and he started this agency that gives all kinds of things year-round to soldiers in the Israeli army. They provide them with warmer weather garments in the winter. Israel clothes its army in a proper way, but they give extra stuff. They provide extra clothing, extra warm stuff in the winter, extra stuff in the summer, and they send shalach manos, mishloach manot ish l're'ehu. So I have a link to Yashar L'Chayal, and I have a link to, I believe, a second agency, National Council of Young Israel's Young Israel program, that also sends shalach manos, mishloach manot ish l're'ehu, to Jews whom they identify in Israel. That's not for poverty, that's just for Jews. So you can fulfill the mitzvah of shalach manos. Now, the thing is, shalach manos is supposed to be sent. It's not, that is the word shalach, mishloach. It's not supposed to be handed. It's okay as a fallback. It's interesting. It's not the ideal. It's okay as a fallback for you personally to hand the gift of 2 foods to a neighbor, to a friend, what have you. That's okay. But it is better to send it through an intermediary, through a third party, mishloach manot ish l're'ehu. So it's actually better. It seems counterintuitive that it would be nicer and better to do the mitzvah by having Yashar L'Chayal or National Council of Young Israel send the money, send the food. But that's actually better. And then you could also do your own shalach manos through Amazon, among other ideas. If you were to go on Amazon and look up shalach manos mishloach manot, and which we did, and I believe I have a link to that, you could actually send your shalach manos through Amazon and earmark someone or someone's You're allowed to give it to more than one household. So that covers the mitzvahs. Again, very briefly, Wednesday night of this week, 6:30 p.m., quick Marav the Megillah reading. The Megillah must be read from a kosher parchment Megillah, hand scribed. So I'll do that. I have the Megillah. You would follow along. If you own a kosher parchment Megillah, that's better. Otherwise, from a codex, a book. Like even in the back of the Art Scroll Chumash, they have the Megillah. Secondly, we said on Megillah Day, Purim Day Thursday, the 4 mitzvahs. I will read Megillah at 3 p.m., all times Pacific Daylight Time. If you have a different reading or in person, gesundheit, that you'd like to attend. Secondly, you could send shalach manos. We talked about, and there'll be some links in my email. Thirdly, we can send gifts to the poor, and I'll have a link in the email. And finally, the Seudah. There should be a very proper Seudat Purim that includes meat and wine. You eat it anytime Purim day, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., anytime after Shachrit. Many people have it towards the end of the day and make it their custom to have it late afternoon because they're accustomed to go to work. And they work 9 to 5, get home at 6, have to get started by 6:30, or what am I talking about? Yeah, right, daylight savings time. So you can have it whenever you have it. In the past, year after year after year, we've run gorgeous, beautiful Seudot Purim with not only meat and wine, but waiters and just all really good stuff. But again, we're not doing it this year because of the pandemic. Okay, with all that as background, we go into chapter 8. Chapter 8 of Megillah and chapter 9. At this point in the story, Haman has been hanged. As we say and remind you often, English grammar, people are hanged, clothing is hung. Haman has been hanged. There was the second feast with Achashverosh, Esther and Haman, where she disclosed Ish Tsar va'oyev Haman hara hazeh. This evil man, this persecutor and torturer, Haman. She discloses to Achashverosh, that's the one who's about to destroy my nation. If the problem only were that my nation is about to be sold into slavery, I would not, the amount of pain and discomfiture would not be sufficient to justify bothering the king. She says with humility, aware that he has the power of life and death, and has already had her predecessor killed, Vashti at the beginning of the story. But this is more. Kinim karnu ani va'ami. We have been sold into slavery. Mihu zev yezahu, he says. Who would dare do such a thing? Haman hara hazeh. Isar v'oyev. Haman hara hazeh. This man of great horror. The king goes out filled with rage. Vayamalei hamelech chema, or something or other. And when he comes back in, he sees this extraordinary sight in front of his eyes. She's on a chaise lounge, one of those very comfy kind of couches that the rich kind of sit on. That's like a half-size couch for one person. And Haman is on top of her. He's shaking. He knows the king's rage. He has seen the king in the past. One moment jovial, drinking wine at a party, saying, bring out my naked wife. Let's all take a good look at her. And he has seen how within moments, that same person turns on a dime or the equivalent in Persian currency, and especially when under the influence of alcohol, can have that person killed. And he realizes instantly that he could be the next one. He's shaking. His entire body is shaking. He goes to the queen to beg for his life. And the rabbis note the Hebrew words, and that's where I'm going to take up from the reading. In the end of chapter 7, the rabbis note that everything is written in past tense because it's a story that happened in the past. So the queen said, the king went out, everything past tense. But curiously, the Hebrew word, as he's falling on the queen, it doesn't say, and then he fell on the queen, nafal, but it says no fail, same letters, nun fe lamed. But the dots, the vowels, the vocalization says no fail. That is, she spoke, he spoke, they went out, king got angry, Haman is falling. It should say, and then Haman fell on the queen. The rabbis ask, why does the text specifically say falling? I noticed, by the way, Naomi Popik already is wearing her costume, and she's in a mask. So anyway, the rabbis say it falling to hint in the text of the miracle that took place. Haman was shaking, and therefore he slipped on the queen and immediately got up, because it's not appropriate to be on the queen. And God sent a miracle. God sent Gabriel, the angel, to push him back down. Every time Haman tries to get up, during those 2-3 minutes, Gabriel pushes him back down, so that he will be on the queen when the king re-enters the room from the Ginat Habitan. Ginat Habitan, Ginat, from the word gan, garden, Bitan, from the word bait, house. The garden of the house, the palace garden. Think in the United States of the Rose Garden, famous, the East Lawn or West Lawn, whatever it is. So in the same way, the king having gone out to the garden of the palace, Haman having fallen on the queen, Gabriel makes sure he stays on the queen. When the king comes in and sees, Hagam lichbosh, did you also come to conquer my wife under my nose in my house? Wondering whether he's raping her, trying. So the king immediately is furious. Charvona, and that too is where we begin today in the text. Charvona is a member of his cabinet. It's not quite clear how Charvona even shows up in the story at this point, because it's supposed to be a private party for 3, the king, the queen, and Haman. A drinking party, social event. Haman was very proud and happy about this event. So it's not quite clear how Charvona is there, but we know Charvona is a high-ranking member of the cabinet who is a close friend of Haman. Curiously, when the king exclaims, have you come basically to rape my wife? When the king, inebriated, sees Haman all over his wife. Hagam lichbosh, have you come to conquer my wife? Charvona says, and by the way, he just set up a gallows on a tree to kill Mordechai, the Jew who saved your life, by having disclosed an assassination plot years ago, Bigtan and Teresh. And the king says, Tuluhu alav. So hang him on it, because the king turns on a dime, or whatever Persian currency was in those days. And they hang Haman. The rabbis of the Talmud and the Midrash, they discuss how did Charvona come to turn on Haman, his closest ally. The two of them were Jew haters on the cabinet. The rabbis teach us, this is commonly accepted in the Midrash, that was not Charvona. That Charvona was home, I don't know, watching the NFL. Charvona was home. He had no business being there, and he wasn't. But that an apparition of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, instead had arrived. And it was Elijah the prophet in the appearance of Charvona who said that. Now, I've talked more than enough times in my classes about Midrash. And I've taught you that if it says something explicitly in Torah text, we believe it. And if it's a Midrash, you are welcome to believe it or not to believe it. It is not lack of faith. It's not deemed unorthodox for an Orthodox Jew to say, I don't know about that. So if your attitude is, I don't know about that, that's okay. But I share with you that according to the Midrash, Charvona is actually Eliyahu Hanavi. And that's important to know for another reason. We have a tradition. When we refer to Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, we refer to him as Zachur Latov, Zecher Levracha. Zachor Latov, may his memory be for a blessing. It's said about all righteous people, but it's actually a Gemara quasi-requirement. Whenever you refer to Eliyahu, like whenever I refer to Rebbe Tzin, I always say Zichrona Livracha. Zichrona Livracha. May her memory always be for a blessing. God bless Ellen, what she did to help me in my life, and how she impacted all of us, or so many of us. In the same way, or even more so, the rabbis of the Talmud say, whenever referring specifically to Eliyahu, you're supposed to say Zachor Latov. And you may or may not note, but in the Shoshanat Yaakov song that is sung at the end of Megillah reading, it ends, it's the Shoshanat Yaakov, Sahala v'samecha, that song that's sung after the reading of Megillah. It ends with the words about Arur Haman, Baruch Mordechai. It talks about Arur Zeresh, his wife, and blessed Charvona Zachor Latov. And that's a pretty big thing for the rabbis to have written a prayer that refers to a non-Jew as Zachor Latov. Charvona Zachor Latov. It's the only case in all of Jewish liturgy. And the reason is that it's a hint that Charvona wasn't Charvona, but was Eliyahu Zachor Latov. So that's the introduction to today's class. Happy daylight savings time. And as we begin right now, I begin with two film clips, short clips of pogroms. I begin with pogroms for the following reason. Haman had established at Pesach time of the last year of his life, last days of his life, he didn't expect it, that he's going to exterminate all the Jews. La'abed is to exterminate. Laharog, lahashmidu, la'abed, to destroy, to kill and exterminate. He got permission from Achashverosh, and the lottery came out for the 13th of Adar, 11 months later. Nisan, the days of Pesach, on the 13th of Nisan, 2 days before Pesach, he does the lottery. It falls that he'll kill the Jews on the 13th of Adar, 11 months hence. So it's a year later, practically. In today's key class of text, the key is we're going to be covering chapters 8 and 9. In those chapters, with Haman having been overcome and hanged, and now Esther revealed to be a Jew, thus Mordechai, who saved the king's life, his role was known, now it's known he's a Jew. The king suddenly becomes philo-Semitic, becomes for the Jews, realizing the wife he loves is a Jew, and the guy who saved his life is a Jew. We've learned for many, many weeks of these classes that the Gemara regards Achashverosh as evil, a Rasha Gomer, a very evil man, a Jew hater. He knowingly permitted Haman, he approved the murder extermination request of 13 Nisan. He's not a good guy. But by the end of the story, he recognizes, number one, that his queen is a Jew, that his life saver is a Jew. And on top of all that, we're trying to get permission from the king to disseminate this story throughout his 127 provinces. So we have to get through his censorship. And it's not going to get through if we call him a bad guy. So we have to call him a good guy. Now, that's important because the date of 13 Adar still is approaching. And on the calendar, just as the second Monday in January is Martin Luther King Day, and the third Monday in February is President's Day, and last Monday in May is Memorial Day, and 4th of July, and the first Monday of September is Labor Day. And Monday, October 12th is Columbus Day. And the fourth Thursday of November is Thanksgiving. Well, that's on their calendar. 13 Adar is Jew Extermination Day. That's on the calendar. Still on the calendar. And Esther and Mordechai come to the king and they say, we got to do something about Extermination Day. Can we just change the calendar? Used to have Washington's birthday on February 22, and Lincoln's birthday on February 12th. And then we merged the two birthdays to President's Day, reducing national holidays by one, so we could add a national holiday for Martin Luther King Day without disrupting the workers' work annual requirements. So we took off a holiday. Can we take Jew Extermination Day off the calendar? And the king responds, we can't, because this isn't the United States. And here in the Persian Empire of biblical times, the law is any decree of the king that has been issued with the king's signet ring may not be reversed. Well, we've declared Adar 13 as Jew Extermination Day. So we still have to exterminate the Jews. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah, I'm now philo-Semitic. I've changed from anti-Semitic to philo-Semitic. Philo. I like the Jews. What can I do? I cannot reverse any ruling, any decree. Oh, here's what I could do. Simultaneously, I can also decree the same exact day, Adar 13, Anti-Semite Extermination Day, Nazi Extermination Day. So we'll have lots of holidays. By the way, the United States, any day of the week is 7 days, like National Donut Day, National Kiss Your Mule Day, National Cut Your Fingernails Day. The United States will have 7 or 8 days for every day. If you look it up, don't do it now, but afterwards, just look up National Day, National Donut Day. It'll lead you to other days. National Fund the Police Day and National Defund the Police Day. They can contradict each other. These are just days the Congress passes. Keeps everybody happy. So he's going to keep National Let's Destroy and Exterminate the Jews Day and National Let's Destroy the Nazis Day. And it leaves the reader a few thoughts. That's part of today's class. I'm going to show you the identical text. Each of the 2 extermination days, National Exterminate the Jews Day, 13 Adar, National Exterminate the Anti-Jews Day, 13 Adar, has exactly the same text. Lashmid la rogel abed, ushlalam lavos. It's the day you will kill, wipe out, and exterminate all either Jews in one decree, all anti-Semites in the other decree. Ushlalam lavos. Na'ar v'zakein, mitaf biad zakein, including men, women, and children, babies. It's in both decrees. And I'm going to show you. The Jew haters on the 13th of Adar, had they been able to succeed, would have killed every Jewish woman also, and every Jewish baby, and truly would have exterminated the Jewish people, and Shlalam Lavos would have taken all of our plunder, our homes, our pianos, whatever they had. And I'm going to show you in the text, it's going to subtly point out the Jews with an identical authorization. You may kill out all the anti-Semites from not only kill them, but their wives, their women, their babies, and take all their plunder. And I'm going to show you the Jews did not kill the women and did not take any plunder, even though they were granted, but they did kill 75,800 anti-Semites, which was a good day's toll. So it raises the remaining last thing in this massive introduction to today's text, of which I've made very few jokes. It's very serious stuff, and I've tried to get a lot of material in a very short amount of time to leave maximum for the text. It raises the question, if you have two contradicting decrees of this nature, ultimately it then devolves onto the pogromists of both sides to execute the mass killings, the so-called exterminating. So, frankly, the way Jews fight, and there are good Jewish fighters, certainly beginning with the Israeli army, but the general idea of a Jew as a lawyer and accountant in the modern era, even if we were not a lawyers and accountants then we were equivalent, but it still raises the question in a fair fight between a small minority of Jews, which is all we are, Yeshno Am Echad Mefuzar Umefarad Bein Ha'amim, we're just a small scattered nation amidst the gigantic nations of this empire. It gives and raises the question, if we are so few, fighting so many, we've been authorized to pogrom them, they've been authorized to pogrom us. The question then becomes, how is it that we succeed and they fail? Because they had a decree behind them too. They, despite the fall of Haman, you might have thought they might still have wiped us out, because they do have a decree on the books that remains on the books. There's still National Exterminate the Jews Day. And this underscores the power of having the police on your side during the pogrom. If the police supervise a pogrom and they give the word, we're behind it, you win your pogrom. So if you have National Exterminate Jews Day and the police are all over the place saying, you touch a Jew, we will kill you, that sort of weakens the anti-Semitic pogrom. And if the police likewise go to the Jews and say, don't worry, have a good time, kill your enemies, and if we see you having any trouble, we'll be there to back you up. Well, that pogrom plays out very differently. And that's the way to understand it. So we've had a lot of intro, ranging from the hanging of Haman, Charvona, actually, according to Midrash, being Eliyahu Zachar Letov. We've talked about the role that was played by the pogroms, the unique, similar wording of the anti-Semitic pogrom and the philo-Semitic pogrom, same decree, and we've explained why the Jewish pogrom actually comes off and the non-Jewish pogrom does not come off. I want to show you two pogroms. Each is about 2 minutes. One is what I closed with last week, the pogrom at the wedding of Fiddler on the Roof, mostly a very delightful, jokey musical. We enjoy Fiddler on the Roof. It has one or two very upsetting elements. The intermarriage of Chava with Fietka. Any intermarriage is a tragedy. And that's the one Tevye cannot give up on. And among other sad things, there is the pogrom. Amidst the wedding of their first daughter and Muttal Kamsoil, there's a pogrom. And you'll see it. They had been, you'll see it. And the other one I take from I believe it's called Once Upon a Time in Russia. It's it's about 5 or 6 episodes. I'm not going to watch the episodes, just one scene about a guy. It's an interesting story. 100 years ago, around 1905, the leading mafia guy in Russia was a Jew in Odessa. And it's about him. He was a Jew. He had a Jewish mafia. It was the equivalent of the Italian mafia in the United States in the 1920s. Even though Jews were susceptible to anti-Semitism of the worst sort, and we were a minority that was in constant, hey, we're in such danger, that's why we're all in America, because all our grandparents, most of them came here. Nevertheless, he was able to run a mob, much as the Italian and Jewish mobs of New York in the 1920s proliferated 30s, even though we were minorities, the Italians and Jews who faced a certain amount of persecution. Not persecution, bigotry. So you had the Sacco and Vanzettis, and you had all the anti-Italian stuff, but they still had a pretty solid mob. And you had your share of anti-Semitism in America into the 1950s, but you also had Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky and that chevra. We learned about them. So there was a Jewish mob in Odessa, and he had Jewish identity, not religiously so, but ethnically so. And there's one scene they depict in this. It's a drama, so it's based on a true story, which means it's not accurate. But there's a scene where there's an anti-Semitic mob, and the Jews turn to him, whom they normally avoid, just like the Italians did not really appreciate in the first instance Lucky Luciano, or in the film Don Corleone. But when you came under attack, you turned to your own if the government wouldn't protect you. So here we go. 2 pogroms, to get an idea of what it's like when people come to kill the Jews.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
I have this piece of news I think I should tell you as a friend.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm giving you this news because I like you. You're an honest, decent person, even though you aren't Jew.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. How often does a man get a compliment like that? And the news?
We have received orders that sometime soon this district is to have a little unofficial demonstration.
What? A pogrom? Here?
No, just a little unofficial demonstration.
Little? How little?
Not too serious, just some mischief, so that if an inspector comes through, he can see that we did our duty. Personally, I don't know why there has to be this trouble between people, but I thought I should tell you.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're a good man. If I may say so. It's too bad you're not a Jew.
That's what I like about you, Tevye. You're always joking. Congratulations again for your daughter.
Thank you, Your Honor.
These Christ killers.
Of course not. I just meant that things have been peaceful here.
I have other villages to visit. If you don't want to follow orders, we shall get someone else who will.
Oh, no, sir. I'll take care of it, of course. I said enough! Come!
I want to bring up one more.
Orders are orders. Understand?
Just pull this off. What I want to pull out here Just one more melody before we break. Before we go back to the text. Here we go.
They call me Anatole, in prison I do lie. My little window looks out on a Russian sky. I've been arrested here for crimes they have not named, but all my people know the charge will be a frame. See my accuser standing in the hall. He points his finger at us all. You now must pay the penalty for the crime of daring to be free. We are leaving Mother Russia. We have waited far too long. We are leaving Mother Russia. When they come for us, we'll be gone. For 15 centuries we've called this land our home. We love the Russian soil as much as anyone. In countless armies our young boys have died for you. But never did you call them sons, you always called them Jew. We fell in battle for the Tsar. 100,000 died at Babi Yar, and yet no monument will mark their grave. Just on our passports, the word Yevrei. We are leaving Mother Russia. We have waited far too long. We are leaving Mother Russia. When they come for us, we'll be gone.
Woodman, Geisler, Tractate, Goldfeld, Torabilski, Korenblish, Wilbur, Kalinsky, Kachersky, Shurievsky, Cyril, Guzman, Mendelmanis, Ruben, Rabinovich, Sinyavsky, Ginsburg, Yakov, Alexander Karkin, Svechinski, Mendelevich, Rusakov, Shur, Sharansky, Rodetskaya, Minsky, Shifred, Willis, Dolman. Rusakov, Kurilius, Stepan, Yarsky, Levin, Marchenko, Alexandrovich.
These ancient prison walls have watched them all pass by, and many of them were much stronger men than I. For they lived without hope, alone inside the cell. But I've a vision of my home in Israel. My friends, we know what silence brings. Another Hitler waiting in the wings. So stand up now and shout it to the sky. They may bring us to our knees, but we'll never die. We are leaving Mother Russia. We have waited for too long. We are leaving Mother Russia. When they come for us, dead, but too long we are leaving. Mother Russia, when they come for us, we'll be gone.
You ain't going to find a Megillah class anywhere else that quite is this. Here we go. Let's go to the text. And by the way, it brought it full cycle from pogroms to the current Russia, Ukraine, to Ahmadinejad, former president of Iran, Persia. Here we go. Vayomer Charvona, Echad min hasarisim. Charvona, whom our rabbis tell us may have been Eliyahu Hanavi, Zachor Latov, says, Gam hinei ha'etz asher asa Haman l'Mordechai, asher diber tov al hamelech, omed beves Haman. And so there is that tree that Haman, the gallows that he created to kill Mordechai, who spoke good for save the king's life. Vayomer hamelech tiluhu alav. So the king said, hang him on it. This is that reference I made. Haman no fail versus Haman nafal. Chapter 8. Vayamahu Natan Melech Hashverosh Esther Malka et Beit Haman Surer Hayudim. So the Jews now are given all of Haman's property. And the king, who had taken his royal signet ring, the ring that's needed to go into that hot wax and create that unique signal and symbol that any decree has the king's authoritative issuance. He had given that ring to Haman with which to use to legitimize and authorize the decree to exterminate the Jews. And now he's taken that ring from Haman and he's given it to Mordechai. And he's placed Mordechai and Esther in charge. And she begs him, you still have National Exterminate the Jews Day. And therefore, we've got to do something about this. Yikatev lahashiv et asfarim. Please, asher katav la'abed haYehudim. We need dispatches to be written countermanding National Exterminate the Jews Day, which embodied his plot to annihilate us. Because how can I bear Echacha uchal v'ra'iti b'ra'a asher yimsa et ami v'echacha uchal v'ra'iti v'avdan moladati. How can I bear seeing the destruction of my people? And the king says the problem here is, on the one hand, I've had him hanged on the tree. I've done everything you've asked. And if you want to make a National Exterminate the Nazis Day, go ahead. Kitvu al haYehudim katov be'enechem b'shem hamelech. Write a decree, however you like the wording to be, in my name. V'chitmu b'taba'at hamelech. I've given you my ring. You can seal it. Ki chatav v'shenichtav b'shem hamelech v'nachtom b'taba'at hamelech ein lahashiv. The problem is, we already have issued National Exterminate the Jews Day. And any official decree ever issued in my name never may be withdrawn. An edict that's written in the king's name, sealed with the king's signet, may not be revoked. So we simply, our best is we could have two exactly conflicting decrees, but I'll have the police enforce the one you want. So they did. It was written at Mordechai's dictation, and Mordechai felt the safest way to do it is literally to have the two texts of the two decrees match word for word. He had them written in the king's name, sealed with the king's signet, that the king has permitted the Jews of every city to assemble and fight for their lives. If any people or province attacks the Jews, they may destroy, massacre, and exterminate. The armed force, together with women and children, plunder their possessions. Lihikohel v'lamod al nafsham. The Jews may gather to protect themselves. And this is a distinctly non-Jewish thing, to go out of your way. It's one thing if God commands to kill people, women, babies, take their plunder. It's not a Jewish thing. Lahashmid laharog li'abed, to do a shmad, to destroy them, a hereg, to kill them, ibud, to exterminate them, annihilate them. Tafinashim, even little babies and women. Ushlalam lavos. We're at chapter 8, verse 11. How do we deal with that? We're going to go to chapter 3, take a very quick peek to compare the text of the Haman decree in chapter 3. In the Haman decree, he had said, Im halamelech tov, if it's okay with the king, yikatev li'abdam, let it be written to destroy the Jews, for their destruction, for their annihilation. And so it was written as a decree from the king, lahashmid, laharog, ula'abed, to do shmad, to wipe them out, to kill them, to exterminate them, to destroy, massacre, and exterminate. It kol haYehudim, all the Jews, mina'ar v'ad zaken, from young and old, taf v'nashim, children and women, b'yom echad b'shloshasar lechodesh nemasar chodesh adar, on one day, a mass extermination of all Jews in the empire, the same 13th of Adar, ushlalam lavos. So hold those words again. Lahashmid laharog la'abed, minar v'ad zaken, taf v'nashim, babies and women, ushlalam lavos. Now let's go back to our text. And for your convenience, I've prepared a piece of paper that I'll share that has those words. So you don't have to keep memorizing it. But I want to point out again that the alternative decree they've written, Mordechai and Esther, b'chol ir v'ir lehi kahol kahel v'lamod nafsham, lahashmid v'laharog uliabed, to destroy, massacre, and exterminate. All the anti-Semites, taf v'nashim, babies and children, ushlalam lavos. B'yom echad b'chol medinam, also on one day, anti-Jewish extermination day happens to fall on the same day as anti-Semite extermination day, the 13th of Adar. And the whole difference is going to be which one will be supported and reinforced by the king. Let's take a look at these texts again, just side by side. Oops, wrong page. The massacres. So let's take a little bit of a look, see if I can zoom it just a little bit bigger. If not, this is big enough anyway. All right, let's just zoom it a little bigger. Let's put it up to about 120, 130. Just give it a little bit more. There we go. So in the Haman one, lahashmid laharog li'abed. In the Mordechai one, likewise, lahashmid laharog li'abed. In the Haman one, minar v'ad zaken, taf v'nashim. In the Jewish one, taf v'nashim, which covers na'ar v'ad zaken. In the Haman one, ushlalam lavos, to plunder their possessions. In the Jewish one, to plunder their possessions. Taf v'nashim, ushlalam lavos. The problem is that anything in the king's name with the king's signet may not be revoked. So you have standing to identical. The second one sent to Kol Medinot, Hamelech Achashverosh, everywhere. So everyone understands which one will have the backing of the government. We will see in chapter 9 in a few moments. The Jews execute the decree. They kill 75,800 anti-Semites. Uvabiza, Lo shalchu et yadam. But they did not touch the plunder. So the question becomes, if they didn't touch the plunder, why did the decree say they could? The answer, because it is not a Jewish thing to go for the plunder, to go massacring civilians. It is not a Jewish thing. In all the wars between Israel and the Arabs, you rarely read of situations of Jews while destroying the Arab opponents, extending time, stealing or taking plunder. It's not a Jewish thing. Rather, Hargu HaYehudim va'abed. We will kill our enemies if it comes to that. But Uvabiza, on the second day in Shushan, Lo Shalchu et Yadam, notwithstanding authorization in the second decree, we did not take any biza. Who did we do? What did we do? We killed our enemies. We killed, interesting wording, chamesh me'ot ish. Those of you who know Hebrew know the word ish. Ish means man. It's a very subtle reference that we did not kill the women or the children. Ish distinguishes from two different other demographic groups. Nashim, or Isha, plural and singular. We did not kill women, only Ish. And Ish distinguishes from Taf, from children. We killed adult men, but we did not kill, other than that, no children were killed, notwithstanding permission in the decree. Why? Because it was there only for the purpose of paralleling the decrees. Let's go back to the text of the Megillah. Mordechai on that day, with authority from the king to rule the nest and rule the roost, goes out with purple that seems to be the glorious color of royalty with all the others. He goes out, Ir Shushan Sahala v'Samecha, and the city of Shushan is filled with joy. It's referring particularly to the Jews of Shushan. And this you recite every Saturday night at Havdalah. We never leave the sentence. We remember it every Saturday night at Havdalah. La Yehudim hayata ora v'simcha v'sason vikor. La Yehudim hayata ora v'simcha v'sason vikor. The Jews enjoyed light and gladness, happiness and honor. And everywhere where the decrees of the king went out, the 127 provinces, Mishtev Yom Tov. It was not only Sason v'Simcha, not only are we happy, right? Sason v'Simcha, but there was Mishtev Yom Tov, having parties with wine and celebrating a holiday. Indeed, many Goyim chose to convert to Judaism, feeling that Judaism was on the ascent. Not a majority of Goyim, but a large number of non-Jews opted to become Jewish. Rabim me'amei haaretz, great numbers of average people, mit Yahadim, joined the Yehudim. Ki nafal pachad hayudim aleim, they're afraid of the Jews. I don't want to get into the politics. I so much want to stay away from contemporary politics in our Torah classes. So I'm not going to get into it, but there was a point after that horrible murder by the cop in Minnesota of George Floyd. There was that moment of the Black Lives Matter movement where you saw white people washing the feet of Black people in some extreme cases. I want to stay out of the politics, and I don't want to get into Black Lives Matter. But there was a moment in time right after the George Floyd thing and the national outrage and shock, seeing that Derek Chauvin, that police cop, what he did to George Floyd. And there was a sudden movement in corporations and campuses to adopt Black Lives Matter. That now has waned tremendously as people have seen the other side of the association that calls itself Black Lives Matter, which is, of course, a distinct thing from saying that with small letters, because all lives do matter, blacks and whites and blue. But that idea that there was a sociological moment of panic where large, because I'm sharing the Black Lives Matter George Floyd moment with you to underscore how an element of the population suddenly becomes overwhelmed, and actually they wanted to convert to Judaism. Chapter 9, jump 11 months, curtain down, curtain up. It's the magic day, the 13th of Adar, Asher Sibru Oivei HaYehudim Lishplot Bahem. This is the day for which Jewish anti-Semites, the Nazis, the proto-Nazis, the before Nazis of Persia, this was the day they awaited to destroy and annihilate and exterminate Shmid Laharog Li'abed, et Kol HaYehudim, Minar V'yad Zakein, Taf V'nashim, all the Jews, V'nahafochu, and the day became reversed. Asher Yishlatu HaYehudim Hema B'son Ehem. Rather, this is the day the Jews succeeded over their enemies. The Jews gathered pursuant to their decree in order to do it for Ishlo Amad Lefnehem, and their haters could not stand before them. No one could stand before them, Ki nafal pachtam al kol ha'amim, because fear of the Jews overwhelmed all the nations. And the government stood behind the Jews because that was the currently favored decree. So kol sarei hamadinot, all the officers and the highest ranking achashtar pnim, all of them menasim et haYehudim. Nun sin aleph, the nasi is the president. Naso is to raise up, to preside, to lead. They elevated the Jews, kinofal pachad Mordechai aleihem, because the fear of Mordechai, second highest ranking in the kingdom, in the empire, fell upon them as well. So they, the officers and achashtar pnim, stood behind the second of the decrees. Vayaku haYehudim b'chol oivehem makat cherev v'hereg v'abdan. So we did what we did. And in the city of Shushan, on the 13th of Adar, we killed 500 Nazis, anti-Semites, including the 10 sons of Haman. So the 10 sons of Haman die 11 months after their father, not the same day as their father. If you know your Hebrew, the word Aleph Tav, 8, it's a kind of word like in English that you could use it, you could skip it. For example, I know that you are in class today. I used it. I know you are in class today. I didn't use it. Again, I know that you are in class. I know you are in class. I didn't need the word that. So why do we have it? Well, that's that. Hebrew has a word like that. 8. At most, it was only one time needed. Curiously, in the Hebrew, it lists the 10 sons of Haman who are killed. Parshandata, unnecessarily V8, V8 Dalphone, that's the name of another guy, V8 Aspata, V8 Parata, V8 Dali, V8 Ridata, V8 Pramashta, V8 Risa, V8 Ridai, V8 Vaisata, Aseret B'nei Haman, 10 unnecessary V8, 10 names, the 10 sons. Of the 10 names throughout history, in the handwritten Megillah, for an unknown reason, 3 letters are written in small size. Hebrew does not exactly have capital letters and small letters. There is cursive in this script, but there's not really uppercase, lowercase. Lowercase is rare, but exists, and is recognizable by simply being written smaller. The name Parshandata historically is written for some reason with a small tav. The name Parmashta, for some reason, is written with a small shin. Tav shin. Tav shin. And the name Vaizata, for some reason, is written with a small zayin. Tav shin zayin. No one knows why, but here's what is fascinating. Here's, again, Parmashta, small tav. Parmashta, what was this? Parsha, these crazy names. Parsha, well, Parshandata, small tav. Parmashta, small shin. Vaizata, small yud. Parshandata, small tav. Parmashta, Vaizata. Another version, Parshandata, Parmashta, Vaizata. A yud is always small, so that's nothing. But the zayin is as small as a yud. One more, just to show you it's not random. Every Megillah ever written, Tav Shin Zayin. Now it happens to be that the way we count Hebrew calendar dates, we're now in 5782. Tav Shin, the first two letters represent 7. We don't include the 5. That's a given for the 1,000 years. In you know how, let's say you're born in 1968, and you're at the doctor. The doctor asks, just checking your records, what's your birthday? And you answer July 1468. So a lot of people don't even say the 19. It's understood. The 69 Mets. The idea that we don't refer to the 1,000. In the Hebrew calendar, when we refer to the year, we're now in 5782. We say that in English, but in Hebrew, we actually don't say it that way. In Hebrew, we say we're in 782. Tav Shin Pei Bet. So in the same way, if Tav Shin Pei Bet 57 is 5782, Tav Shin Zayin is 1946. It's 5707. It's 1946 that started Rosh Hashanah 1946. September 1946 into January 1947. Through September 1947, when the next year came. Some people have noted for 2,000 years, more than 2,000, close to 2,300 years, Jews have been writing the small Tav Shin Zayin in the recounting of the hanging of the 10 sons of Haman. And the word Viet, which unnecessarily shows up 10 times. It's okay, it shows up, but it doesn't have to. But it does. 10 Viets, 1946. Here's what happened in 1946. The Nuremberg trials came to an end with the conviction of 11 Nazis who were sentenced to hang. 11 Nazis were supposed to hang for war crimes. On the day of the hanging, or the day before, one of the 10 somehow got tablets of cyanide into his cell and killed himself. Goering. So 10 were hanged. Nuremberg trials. United States and international police and the judges and the accused, the judges in robes, the accused with the, and the judges, everybody with the headphones so they could hear in their own languages, testimony being given in languages they otherwise would not have understood. Headlines the next day: Goering and company to be hanged. The wages of sin. The 10 who will be hanged: Goering, Ribbentrop, Streicher, Keitel, Jodl, Saukel, Frick, Frank, etc. Hess was sentenced to life in prison with Rader and Funk. Dönitz was given 10 years. 11 are going to hang. But the headline was Goering suicide, taking poison, 10 others hang. One of them was Streicher, the one who was the editor-in-chief of the anti-Semitic newspaper that was Hitler's newspaper that did so much damage. Headlines: Bethlehem Globe Tribune from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Kaput. Goering dies by poison, 10 hang. Daily Mirror. Cards win the World Series. Goering ends life, 10 hang. Daily News. Goering ends life in cell, 10 hang. New York Times. All except 3 of Nazi war chiefs guilty. Goering, Hess, von Ribbentrop convicted. Schacht, von Papen, Fritsch acquitted. Subsequently, Goering ends life by poison, 10 others hang. On the day of the hanging, as they went up to be hanged, one of them said, Purimfest. That was Streicher. Streicher said Purimfest, 1946. There are those who suggest, and you could take it or leave it, that the historic 2,300 years of writing those 10 names, not even knowing why we're writing Tufshin Zion in small letters, that there was an allusion in Megillah Esther to the hanging of the 10 Nazis in 1946. Take it or leave it, just had to share it. So they were killed. And with them being killed, the word got back to the king that in Shushan, the capital, the Jews have killed 500 anti-Semites, as well as the 10 sons of Haman. And they haven't gotten the full count yet from elsewhere in the kingdom. What then must have been done to provinces elsewhere? And the king asks her, anything else you want, or are we done? And she says, if the king will allow it, I'm asking for a second day. I'm asking that permission that be permitted to act tomorrow as they did today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged. Not only that they've been killed, but for 24 hours to leave them on gallows. Her thinking was twofold. Number one, her thought was, we didn't kill all the enemies. We got 500 of them, but there's more to be killed. And secondly, there might be those who have been saying that our counter decree that paralleled the king's decree is because the king was drunk. We had a party, the king got drunk, said that Haman should be hanged. What would you like? Would you like a counter decree identical to the original decree? Yeah. And so I'll give you one. She wanted a second day to establish, even on a day that the king is sober, he's allowing it and authorizing it. So that's the two reasons for a second day. To establish that it was mindful, thoughtful, driven by sobriety, and to finish the job. And the king said, Leheasot came. He said, go for it. So for the second day, on the 14th of Adar, they killed another 300. We killed another 300 men. And again, Uvabizalo Shalchuit Yadam did not lay hands on the spoil. And elsewhere in the kingdom, Jews gathered to save our lives, and they killed the Harod B'Sonehem Chamisha V'Shivim Elef. They killed among their enemies 75,000 enemies were killed in one day. You'll notice it does not say Ishmid V'Ibdu. We did not annihilate our enemies. Not that it wasn't purposefully that we left other haters alive. It's just we had only a day to do it. Killed all we could. Got all we could. A lot of them stayed indoors. And yet many of them came outdoors because for them, they knew there was a decree on the books, kill the Jews Day. And it was only during the conflict that they saw which side the police would enforce. Uvabi Zalo Shalchuit Yadam, and the Jews did not lay hands on the plunder. Why did it say, why did we put it in our own decree? I've explained it. It had to be a parallel decree to be sure that the officers understood you have two identical decrees, you may not enforce both. So you've got to figure out which one. If the pro-Jew decree were not so incredibly parallel, the concern was they might enforce both. So what you ended up happening is that the Jews everywhere killed our enemies on the 13th and celebrated on the 14th. And in Shushan, they killed on the 13th and 14th and celebrated on the 15th. So therefore, that is why village Jews who live in unwalled towns, which is like 98% of all Jews in the world, 99%, observe the 14th day. That'll be this Wednesday night and Thursday. And make it a day of merrymaking and feasting. Mishteh, you have a Seudah. Yom Tov, you make it a holiday. Mishloach Manus, each l'reyehu. Mishloach Manot, Shalach Manus, giving food gifts to at least one friend. And Mordechai wrote it out. That's how we do it from now on. And on the other hand, so on the one hand, L'kayem aleim liot osim et yom 14 l'chodesh Adar, v'et yom 15. And for the Jews living in the capital city, they will celebrate both the 14th and primarily the 15th, which is why it's known as Shushan Purim, the Purim for the capital city. Those are the days that the Jews turned it all around, transformed for them from one of grief and mourning to one of festive joy. Napach lahem mi'agon l'simcha me'evel yom tov, to make them days of mishteh v'simcha, mishteh lishtot, shoteh, to drink, simcha, to celebrate, mishloach manot ish l'reyehu, give at least 2 food gifts, plural, to at least one friend, umatanot le'evyonim, and gifts, meaning plural, evyonim, plural, gifts, presents to the poor. And the Jews accepted this and took upon ourselves, it's the last holiday that is canonized in the Tanakh, in the Bible. The only one after the Bible is Hanukkah, which is, of course, during the Greek period, 165 before the Common Era, after the Bible already is closed with this story, historically, the last event of the Bible. And then it wraps it up, talks about Haman was evil, therefore he was hanged, therefore the Jews call this holiday Purim, the day of lotteries, because he did a lottery, Al Shem Apur. He did a lottery for the month, and he picked Adar. And for the day, he picked 13. So it's Purim, plural of Purim. And the Jews took upon ourselves, though it's not commanded by God, nor by any of the major prophets like Ezekiel or Jeremiah. Nevertheless, the Jews accepted it by the command of Mordechai and Esther to be on their generations and all their children, all who follow them, for all time. B'chol shana v'shana, every single year. It'll always be on Hayamim ha'ela, nizkarim v'nasim b'chol dor v'dor. These days will be recalled and observed in every generation by every Jewish family, even though we're not Persians. Certainly the Persians, but even those of us who would say, well, that was your miracle, not ours. No, it is our miracle. Every family, every province, every city, and these days of Purim shall never leave the Jewish people. Days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews, lo yavru mitoch haYehudim. It is said that at the time of Mashiach, at the time of the resurrection of the dead, the two holidays that will continue, all others will cease. The two that will continue will be Yom Kippur, I believe, maybe Yom Kippur, and Purim. Purim will never end. Tichtov, vatichtov Esther Hamalka. So Queen Esther wrote out the story, and Mordechai tweaked it, and they sent it out through the censors in a way that would get through. And Igeret Purim, and that's why we read it from a cloth, from a parchment, the official reader, for the purpose of people knowing. And that happened a second time, a second year, to make it official. They sent it out through the censors. It got past censorship through all 127 provinces. L'kayem et yemei hapurim ha'ela b'zmanehem ka'asher ki amalei Mordechai Yehudi v'Esther HaMelkah, that it should be marked every year on the same day. You don't do this America thing where you eventually change the date for understandable and maybe good reasons to a Monday. When we grew up, Columbus Day was October 12th, no matter what day in the week. Veterans Day, November 11, Washington's birthday, February 22, Lincoln, February 12. Memorial Day was, I think, May 30, might have been May 31 by now. I might be off, I don't remember. There was no Martin Luther King yet. And what happened eventually is we moved many of these holidays to be Mondays, so that if you're going to have a day off anyway, may as well have an extended weekend. But in Judaism, but you notice even in the non-Jewish world, we still do the 4th of July on the day of the Declaration, and the Goyim still do Christmas on December 25. So in the same way, Purim shall always be on its day, the day of the celebration. Last chapter, I went a little bit over, but it's only 3 verses. The king set out a tax because there was great destruction. Jews had killed 75,800 Goyim. Anti-Semites all. Jews did not go after non-Jews randomly, believe me. But they went after the anti-Semites who rose up against them. There was a tremendous amount of damage. And the king raised the tax, A-T-A-X, throughout his provinces. And the book ends, to be sure to get it through the censors, about how the king is great. All his mighty and powerful acts. Kol maseh takfo ugvurato. And it refers to Mordechai. They are all written in the annals of the kings. Divrei Hayamim. That's the kind of book that the kings keep to maintain the history of the great events of Media and Persia. Last verse. Ki Mordechai HaYehudi Mishneh LaMelech Achashverosh. Because Mordechai the Jew was second from the word Sheni, was second to the king Achashverosh. V'gadol HaYehudim. He was the great leader of the Jews. He was a giant among Jews. And this is an interesting, subtle little comment. V'ratzui lirov echav. And he was beloved by most Jews. I would have thought he was beloved by all Jews. But we're Jews. We are Jews. Everyone's got an opinion. And there were Jews who felt he got us out of the mess, but he got us into the mess. He should have bowed down to begin with. And there were other Jews who felt, the Jew should not be in government. The Jew should be home learning Torah, especially a leader in the Anshe Knesset Agdol, a man of the Great Assembly, does not belong in government. He should be spending every waking hour learning Torah. He should not be in government. So, Ratzui L'rov Achav, he wants to put it in the book. Mordechai's writing it in a way, I've taught you for these many weeks, that he wrote it in a way that would get through the censors, and you got to know how to read between the lines so that you don't miss any of the really rich stuff that he's putting in that he doesn't want to say explicitly. So instead of saying there's a bunch of nudniks out there and clergy killers who are out to get me, even after all I did, he simply notes Ratzui l'rov echav, and he's beloved by most of the people. Doresh tov li'amo, and he's defending himself. As far as those that are angry that I'm in government and not sitting in a kollel learning Torah all day, I'm using my position to try to extend the influence and good of the Jews. V'dover shalom l'chol zaro, and I'm trying to gain peace. And indeed, from the child who'll be born to Esther and Achashverosh, and since that child is the son of Esther, he's Jewish, King Darius will allow the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash. And that's how we end up with the second Beit HaMikdash. Thank you for being with me today. Let me stop the recording. And if anybody has a